I'm Omar from Composable. We've been doing a lot of IBC work these past 3 years. It's culminated in Solana IBC and Ethereum IBC in production. So sort of wanted to just touch on like how we got there, why we decided to chew glass for 3 years, and also a little bit about why it was never done before, and sort of future facing, like what's next for the IBC ecosystem overall. So I think like the original vision is similar to many other visions shared in this room, using all different types of applications throughout 2020, 2021, and then beyond. We always run into the issue of I have to use some sort of centralized bridge to do something on some sort of other ecosystem. And I think what was cool about the Polkadot and Cosmos ecosystems was interop sort of came out of the box for every single chain that came out of those two ecosystems. And what we quickly realized was, what if there is a way to sort of not necessarily natively create interop between non-Cosmos chains, but is there a way we can repurpose the trust minimization components associated with IBC and the actual like syntaxes associated with transfers, ICA, et cetera, extend these to other ecosystems and then reduce the friction problem. A big issue of IBC in general is the UX problem as well. And so not only to actually get to a world where you're unifying different ecosystems together using a trust minimized solution like IBC, not only do you actually have to do all the light client work and infrastructure on both sides, but then there's like a whole piece to focus on making UX actually not shit for users. And so a lot of these issues we've been tackling from the infrastructure perspective, like actually making these connections go live, having Cosmos chains use Solana and Ethereum IBC, and sort of now, later in this presentation, I'll be talking about like what's next and how do we actually improve user experience and merge everything we're interested in doing with respect to cross-chain DeFi. So we started out on this journey a long time ago, 3 years ago, focused on how can we create sort of the full stack of what's now called chain abstraction. But if you were in crypto long enough, chain abstraction was always a vision that ecosystems like Polkadot and Cosmos always had, which was how can we unify all the chains and have users interact from a single interface to do things on different chains. It's a very sort of Web 2-esque concept, but it's like pretty much non-existent in Web 3. And so our architecture for how to actually introduce this, the first thing we looked at was, what does this stack look like? And it's application, processing, and settlement. And before tackling processing like solvers and processing layers and MEV, or tackling the application stack of like intents and routing, we first said, how do you settle things on different chains? And the answer at the time was, Axelar, Layer 0, Wormhole. Bunch of hacks later, we sort of got frustrated and said, okay, we have to extend IBC to other ecosystems. So we built a Cosmos chain called Picasso. And what Picasso does is it's essentially a sort of hub chain for allowing people to move quickly between Ethereum, our chain, other ecosystems, and Solana, and also Solana to Ethereum, vice versa, over IBC. Later in the presentation, I'll talk a little bit about why we're actually, like how we actually did Solana IBC, and that's where we used a restaking layer on Solana to actually do that. So we also have sort of this sort of restaking leg of the project as well. So this is kind of the architecture of what Picasso looks like essentially now. We have a chain with validators, and within this chain, we implemented the WASM client together with Strangelove and a couple other folks. And this WASM client contains light clients for the Polkadot ecosystem, Kusama ecosystem, Solana, and Ethereum, sort of all sitting within the WASM client. And what's cool about the WASM client is any other Cosmos chain can now just like run with the WASM client and start integrating to these different IBC implementations we've done. We haven't seen many other teams doing that at the moment, which is why we've sort of created this convenient architecture where all a Cosmos chain has to do to access Ethereum, Solana, Polkadot, etc., is just directly open an IBC connection to us, and we're able to facilitate the transfers. So yeah, just talking a little bit about how we did Ethereum IBC. So there was like a lot of attempts to do ETH IBC in the past. I think the furthest team that had pushed this forward was DataChain with their UE IBC Solidity repo. And so that sort of had a lot of the interfaces for ICS-20, had sort of an attempt of building a light client of a Tendermint Cosmos chain on Ethereum. And we also sort of, but at the same time, we had nothing on the Cosmos side for processing anything coming out of Ethereum. And back in the day when Ethereum was POW, it was also difficult because, there was no actual like ability for us to have a light client of Ethereum POW. And so post ETH 2.0, there's this like Altair light client that emerged, which isn't perfect. The sync committee is essentially signing all transactions going through the Altair situation, which isn't amazing, but everybody in Ethereum uses it. So, I mean, that's on them. So we essentially had to implement a light client of a Cosmos chain on Ethereum, light client of Ethereum on our Cosmos chain, put that into the WASM client. And then the difficulty then was the difference in signature schemes. So a raw transfer between Ethereum and a Cosmos chain is like 4 million gas, which is like hundreds of dollars for people. And so Succinct had built this thing called Tendermint X, which allowed for really cheap verification of Tendermint consensus into a smart contract on Ethereum. So we worked with them to sort of put this together and put this in production. And now we sort of have Frax on Osmosis already. Gov proposal just passed this past week for emissions for Osmo, FXS, and Pika. So we're going to be sort of turbocharging the liquidity pools we create within the Osmosis ecosystem for Ethereum assets. And what's also cool is you can also move assets from Cosmos ecosystem over to Ethereum as well now, which hasn't historically been super popular, but we think that having Atom as collateral on Compound or Aave, like these are the types of things that actually matter and actually improve visibility for the Cosmos ecosystem overall. So everybody's talking about Solana these days. We started Solana IBC sort of in parallel to ETH IBC last March or so. And the first thing we discovered was Solana doesn't have the necessary architecture to be able to actually do IBC, i.e. there's like no actual state proofs. There's no ability for us to actually verify anything on Solana. And so we, in collaboration with the University of Lisbon, we essentially architected a way to have sort of like a chain within a chain. So we sort of made a chain called the guest blockchain that is able to construct the necessary information required to facilitate IBC and stuck that directly within a smart contract on Solana. And essentially those events are what's used to do IBC properly. And so this is where like restaking was necessary, because in order to have that chain be secure enough for transfers to occur, we needed economic security. And so we opened up a vault contract. At its peak, it had about 30 million restaked SOL. And so now we have 30 or 40 validators actually serving as AVS operators of the Solana restaking layer. And we're also now exploring, like, because so many people are excited about Solana IBC, there's a lot of different teams looking to repurpose Solana security for different things, such as like validating Cosmos chains. So as a result of IBC, we can now do a lot more cool things with the actual restaking layer as well. So this is like, if you look at this slide, it looks like kind of a joke, right? Like no one's actually been able to do this. This is like the Millennium Prize of crypto. But you know, given that we have a lot of experience with IBC at this point. We're the only team to put cross-ecosystem IBC into production. So we've been speaking a lot with different sort of VMs on Bitcoin, such as BitVM and ArchVM, and looking to try to come up with a way where we could connect Solana to Bitcoin just over IBC. I don't think it's going to be possible to do full IBC. I don't know if like ICS-20 transfers can be a thing between Bitcoin and other ecosystems, but I do think it's relatively possible to store Bitcoin on Bitcoin and have proofs, like client proofs, coming from Solana to Bitcoin. Yeah, go ahead. Why not? It's just too expensive. So that's historically been the issue. Like a lot of people have like smart contracting on Bitcoin is not a new concept. There's a lot of different teams back in the day. There's like a team called Run on Bitcoin in like 2014 that was trying to do, computation on Bitcoin. There's also like a lot of things you can do with the scripting, like P2P SH, P2P SHI, where you can store Bitcoin on Bitcoin in a script. And like somebody did a challenge where they were able to unlock Bitcoin from this script like 3-4 years later. So I don't know if it's possible, but I do think it's a worthwhile endeavor for us to pursue and look into. No real actual next steps on this, but this is like something we're actively researching with a lot of these teams that are trying to do verification, and compute on Bitcoin itself. So yeah, now the real question is like, what do you do now that you have all these IBC integrations? And being a bridge team, it's like a pain to try to coordinate like different teams to do something, especially cross ecosystem. But I think what's been really exciting to see is there are lots of people that have the shared vision of cross-pollination. For instance, the Osmosis team. And on Solana, people are really excited to start trading assets that are from other ecosystems. There are people on Solana who want to buy more things than just Mother, for instance. So I think, I think our next steps is we're introducing sort of like a faster version between Solana and Ethereum. We're trying to get the bridge time down to like 10 seconds with some sort of settlement over IBC, like not necessarily ICS-20 transfers. In that, like once that happens, we're trying to sort of slot in to compete with the D-bridges of the world and others who are doing like fast bridging protocols between Solana and Ethereum. And we're trying to work with essentially all these people to get different types of assets listed on, say, MarginFi as for collateral, and bring over assets to Osmosis from both ecosystems as well. And the last sort of alpha is on the sort of partnership side is I think that like yield stripping protocols like Pendle are very interested in LSTs from other ecosystems. And so can't really go into the specifics, but like we are looking to do a lot of things with LSTs from the Cosmos ecosystem, bring them over to Pendle, also Solana as well. So yeah, I think like there's just going to be the wave of cross-pollination is like now possible, and it's possible because of IBC, and it's cheap. So I think like just two other things I wanted to just touch on is a lot of the reason why we decided to go with IBC in general is because I don't think there's a protocol out there that has thought so much about the chain abstraction vision. A lot of people try to separate transport from the other pieces of the chain abstraction lifecycle. I believe we take the opinionated view that that's just not logical, and like if you're offering users a product that is, fulfilling their intents, for instance, and the bridge rugs in the middle, you're still sort of liable. And so this is kind of like why we've taken the opinionated approach that only IBC can be used as the bedrock for chain abstraction protocols. And I think that's the next step of where people start to realize the actual beauty of IBC. So yeah, I'll stop there if there are any questions.
I'll start with my own question. On the consensus-like client,
Yeah.
I see a standard put protobuf very embedded into the protocol.
Yeah.
Challenges of including that in other VMs.
Yeah, it's been a pain, definitely. So I think a lot of what we've tried to do is deal with the additional cost of the wettedness of protobuf with everything else. On Ethereum, it was just super painful, right? We basically would have we had the smart contract for everything done with Ethereum done in November, and we spent 3 months optimizing, right? On Solana, it's not so much of a challenge because it's cheaper, but there is also a lot of optimization that can be done there too.
Cool. Questions?
For the Solana restaking bridge,
Yeah.
do you have to wait an optimistic challenge period to go from the restaking layer back to Solana mainnet? Or?
No, yeah. So basically, what happens is you initiate a transfer from Solana to another chain, and the restaking layer is essentially generating the proofs for the relayer. So you're still on Solana. You never really actually interact with the restaking layer as a user. You're just waiting for things to be generated from the operators, and then you can transfer.
But don't you need a challenge period to validate this proof, because the Solana mainnet's not giving you the proofs?
Yeah. So this guest chain is constantly running at the same time, basically. So there is a period of time where you have to wait for the guest chain to emit the proofs, and then there is slashing associated with this restaking framework, where we have fishermen that are looking to do things, and then the operators do get slashed.
Okay, so you have a challenge period based off of the fisherman period.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Other questions? Okay. Well, with that, time for lunch.
Thank you.